Welcome to the Brand and Market Podcast, where branding clarity meets marketing strategy. I'm your host, Allie Haney, founder of Brand and Market, a boutique agency dedicated to helping small businesses craft intentional brands and effective marketing plans. Each week, I share practical tips and insights to help you, especially those of you in real estate-related industries, build a standout brand to attract your brand's biggest fans. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Brand and Market Podcast. I have on some very knowledgeable ladies today. Their names are Heather and Emily, and they are the co-founders of Data-Led Designs. I first came into Emily's sort of ecosphere when we were in the same coaching program with Natalie Palmer, the host of the No Vacancy podcast, and we were experiencing some of the same, I wouldn't say issues, but we were just walking the same path at the time. She was trying to get her first short-term rental. Is that right, Emily? First short-term rental up off the ground in Cary, North Carolina. So she's right in my backyard. And we were looking for a new property to invest in. So I was just a step behind her. But I'm so excited to welcome them on today so they can tell you more about their business that they co-founded, Data-Led Designs, which is just a wealth of knowledge for anyone looking to get into the short-term rental world, whether you are a new investor, it's your first time purchasing a short-term rental, or if you're an established investor but looking to go into a new market, because let's face it, going into a new market is almost like being a first-timer anyway. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to these ladies to do a little bit more of an in-depth intro to themselves, their backgrounds, as well as Data-Led Designs.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allie, for having us on. We're so excited to talk to you and get to know your audience a little bit more. I'm Heather, so I want to tell you a little bit about how I started Data-Led Designs, and it really came out of finding a lack of information out there in the market and really looking for the part that told the story around the business section. So there's a lot around revenue, how to drive revenue and profitability. But as a guest traveling to Airbnbs, I felt like there was a real opportunity to talk about the guest. And the guest, if you've had a bad experience, you know that is just, that person didn't think about you when you were traveling to their property. And that guest stay wanted to be part of the story that I wanted to share around data and intelligence. Because if you can't get that guest stay right, you're not going to get that 5-star review. You're not going to be able to have a repeat customer there. And that's great social proof, great credibility for you as you set up your listing to show other people who are looking to stay at your place that you're a trusted host and you're a trusted place for people to stay. And I'm a business intelligence professional by trade. So I work at a large company doing a lot of data, living in spreadsheets, and I am a Airbnb Superhost. And I just felt like there's an opportunity in the market to provide this information to people, and wanting to share the process I went through in setting up my Airbnb. We took that sort of data-driven approach. What was the gap in the market? What was really the way we could set it up to really fit the needs of an opportunity that was missing in the city which we were looking in? And we've seen great results from that. And so this Data-Led Designs delivers market insight reporting for markets across the US and abroad. We just did our first one in the UK not long ago, sharing really that path, that blueprint of how to set up a property so that you can become a top performer in any market across the country. So excited to share a bit more about that. Hand it over to you, Emily.
Thank you, Heather. Heather started the business and then brought me on as the marketing guru. I am a marketing expert by trade, and before the job I do now for marketing, which I taught myself to do, I was a wedding planner for about a decade. And so running a small business is something that I have a lot of experience with, and just was really excited to work with my sister. And if you're not watching, Heather and I are identical twins. And so we work really well together because we honestly, we come into the same mindset with each other, and we work with the same level of drive, quality, and passion when it comes to a project. I've wanted to own an Airbnb for a long time. Seeing Heather do it and the success that she's had was the encouragement that I needed to dive right in. I originally wanted to do something in the mountains of North Carolina, but after Hurricane Helene, it was clear that probably wasn't the best bet. So I did something in my backyard. My Airbnb is only 10 minutes away from where I live. And after looking at the numbers for Cary, North Carolina, it seemed like it was silly not to do that. It was such a good investment opportunity that I have had no regrets since then, and I'm so looking forward to talking more about it.
I think that's so funny that you also came from the wedding world because that's not something that everybody knows about me, but I started my business as a wedding photographer as well. And it's so interesting how much overlap there is in the wedding world versus the hospitality world because at the heart, at the core of it, like Heather touched on it earlier, it really is all about like just taking care of somebody on the whether it's their like biggest day of their lives up to that point, or even just a weekend stay. Like it boils down to that guest experience or that client experience, so to speak. So let's dive more into your market insight reports because I feel like when someone comes to work with you all, that's kind of the starting point. Is that correct?
Absolutely. There's two approaches that we take. So we'll work directly with clients to create a custom report. We work with interior designers on projects that they're doing for vacation rental properties with investors. We work with property management groups looking at their entire market, helping them to become experts in that area, and work with real estate agents, really helping them understand what are the right properties to provide guidance to individuals who are looking for investment properties, and then the individual investor. So we've really done a wide range of individuals that are involved in the STR world. And we post reports online. So you can go to our website, you'll be able to download a report for a city you're looking for, or reach out to us and create a custom report. Um, so yeah, there's definitely a couple different ways we can go about approaching that.
So what when I say, okay, I'm just gonna throw out a market because you sent me one prior to this, which was like super insightful. The Lake Arrowhead slash Big Bear market, a big vacation market, has certain seasons. Tell me when I get that report back, what are the kind of like outlines that I'm seeing of what's included in that report?
Yeah, absolutely. And every time we do a custom report, we're going to walk you through it because not everyone's a data person. They don't always understand maybe what the implication of a number means or what a chart looks like. So we make sure everyone's really comfortable. But I think what you're going to see in every report, and this has been honed from several years of client work and really trying to understand what people need when making a decision on investing in a property. You're going to look at market performance. So how is that overall market performing? Are people traveling there in an increase? Are they decreasing? What's the ADR? What's the occupancy? What's the potential revenue that you could make? And we break it down by bedroom count because not everyone's, buying that large 5+ bedroom property. Sometimes your investment looks like a 2-bedroom property, and we help you understand how to maximize that so you can make the most return on your investment there. We're going to help you understand what amenities to select. That's really a question that constantly comes up that I'm seeing on all sorts of forums. How do I understand the ROI for the amenity I'm going to install in my market? And we do that really specifically for each market. Which is the most popular amenity? What's the gap in the amount of amenities in that market? And how can you expect to see that return on investment? How long will that take? We also deep dive into what guest is traveling there because it's really different. Some vacation markets or some non-vacation markets will have a different type of guest persona. And if you can really hone in on who's traveling there, you can set up your property in anticipation of that guest so that you can really wow them with a 5-star stay. What are their needs? What are their wants? And then we also look at pain points. And I will say, Allie, we do this through looking at reviews. So we look at thousands of reviews across the market and we really try to hear what the guest voice is saying so that we can bring that in and really share this is realistically what people are looking for. So you feel really confident in understanding who that person is that's traveling to your area.
There's Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. And it's funny that you basically just touched on my outline of questions that I had to ask you. So we're on the same brainwave. Maybe I'm a triplet and you guys just don't know it yet. No, I'm just kidding. As I was looking through that Lake Arrowhead report, I saw, of course, like revenue numbers are typically going to be higher for the higher bedroom counts, but it might not always be within a budget for an investor to have a purchase price of 1 million plus. So it's kind of a twofold question. First, do you see that as a pattern across multiple markets that, the higher the bedroom count, the higher the revenue is going to be? And if that's the case, where is there space for investors in those like 1 to 2 bedroom properties where it might be more accessible for like an entry level investor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're 100% right. So, a larger properties are absolutely going to always make more money. But when we look at that data, we look at how do you maximize for each bedroom count? So, how do you set up your property to be the best property it can be for the 2 bedroom property, for the 1 bedroom property? And know that the type of person that's traveling and visiting those areas are different. So, a 1 bedroom property is not a multi generational family that's coming to stay there. You're looking at a couple that is going for a romantic trip. So, how do you maximize that? You take a look at what does that couple want when they're traveling to that destination? And couples, and I will say, like, we try to target a specific traveler. We really guide our clients to target the aspiring luxury traveler, is individuals that have money and they're willing to splurge on accommodations. And these are the people that travel over 8 times a year without a doubt. So really looking at setting up, say, a romantic 2 bedroom. They want luxury. They want high-end kitchens. They want great spa baths. They want the robes in there, and they want it to feel really elevated. So I would say do your best to take that 2 bedroom property if that's what you can afford as a starter and make it an absolute beautiful romantic stay. And I would say experiences. People want to have something that's unique and special. They want to be able to have that fire pit that's overlooking the great view. Take a look at what's unique about your area and really be able to incorporate something special and experiential into your stay. And that certainly will make you stand out apart from other individuals in your market.
So the next question that very nicely segues is about amenities and the amenity strategy. I feel like that's something, so I've been in the short-term rental world since 2019, and amenity strategy was not a phrase that was used in 2019. I would say that probably has become more popular within the last 2 to 3 years post-COVID because people are looking for those experiences after being isolated during COVID. So what does that look like since you guys have so much experience across so many markets? Like, let's say, for example, I feel like a hot tub is a very common amenity across many different markets. Is there like a specific ROI that's tied to a specific amenity despite the market? Or is it like different across the board? Is a hot tub worth the same in the mountains as it is at the beach? Does that make sense?
1,000% that makes sense. And I will say the one amenity that sort of comes out on top in every market is a hot tub. Without a doubt, it's a hot tub, but it's worth different amounts in different areas. So we just posted online a report for Kansas City, which we did because the FIFA World Cup is coming to Kansas City, and we're sharing about what's happening in that market. They're trying to get hosts and really be able to have the right
That's so
amount of
smart.
accommodations for the FIFA, fans that are coming. And so we looked at the Kansas City market and we compared it to the metro urban area and the suburban area in Kansas City. It's a really diverse market. And what we found was that you're going to make almost 68% premium if you install a hot tub in a suburban market versus if you do not have a hot tub. So you could almost double, if not more than double what you're making if you install a hot tub. And I'm not just saying like plop a hot tub in your backyard. Of course, you're going to set it up so that it's a really, lovely experience in the sense of like it's intentional, but there's different markets that'll make different returns on investment from a hot tub. And so in that market, you're going to be able to see your ROI in at least 6 months versus maybe some other markets where it's more saturated. And I think that does really well because only 4% of homes in Kansas City have hot tubs. So you're saying it's really common, but actually it's not that common everywhere. So we really deep dive into what are some quick wins around amenities? How do you get that payback in 6 to 18 months? And then how do you establish an amenity that sets you up as a premium positioned property within the market? It may be a bigger investment. Really, the sweet spot is a pool plus a hot tub in that market so that you can really see your not only property positioned as best as it can, but also see those guests that are coming that want that summertime experience. Because we all know June, July, when kids are out, people are traveling, that's the best time to take advantage of vacation rental properties. But, we deep dive and it's unique to every market. So I would say, certain amenities that are fantastic at a lake, you're going to see a great return on investment on a kayak or a stand-up paddleboard. Well, you're not going to see that in other areas just because it's specific to that location and destination. But hot tubs, they come out on top. in almost every market. Even in the UK, when I was looking at it, the hot tub was a number one priority because it just wasn't that common in that area. So I would say that's always a good bet.
That's so smart.
I will say also that we also share kind of that the line of where these amenities are non-negotiable if you do want to be competitive. So we have this graph that shows how much of the market has this particular amenity. And if it's over 50%, then this is honestly, when you're looking at this, it's a non-negotiable amenity that you need to incorporate if you want to be competitive with those other rentals that are at this higher level. And so that information also helps to guide people's strategy. But then we also show you those amenities that are lacking. So like with a lot of markets, the sauna is a lower amenity, or even like an espresso maker or bikes. So it doesn't have to be like a really high value, high expensive item. It could be, but it just depends again on looking at the persona and who's coming and what they really want.
That's so smart because like I've heard, going just because a hot tub's an easy example to use, like in a mountain market for a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom cabin where it's going to be couples or like a set of couples, it really is a non-negotiable to have a hot tub versus in Kansas City. It's going to differentiate you absolutely and put you at that top 5% rental, but it's not something that's going to be a detriment if you don't have it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that I really love that you guys did that you already touched on, Heather, was the quick wins portion of the report versus the premium position. That's something that really drew my attention because we are in the phase right now where we're trying to get our next rental up and running. And it's like prioritizing what's going to need to be done immediately versus what can we do in the next 12 to 18 months once we have some income coming in. And so can you walk me through how you differentiate those? Is it by like financial investment of what's it going to cost to put it in? Is it by just specifically what type of amenity based off of the other rentals that are in that market already? Like what is the thought process that goes in behind that?
Absolutely. And I think what you're saying is so smart. And we always recommend if you can't afford it right away, like having a phased approach to your rental is always really a nice way to go about it. But it really depends on where you're looking. And so as we looked at the Lake Arrowhead market, some of these premium positioning amenities that you need to have actually are based on location. So if you're looking at acquiring a property, having an idea of what really sets you apart before you purchase it might be worthwhile information versus having a property and then updating it, because they're looking for, you're going to a lake market. You're going to want to be on the water. You're going to want us to have that water view, and you're really going to want to dock. So do you have a boat rental that's able to come and visit? Or are you able to go down with your family and play on the lake? So having some of these key, what they're calling amenities, which is these nice features that are associated with you by location, are a premium positioning strategy to take when acquiring a property up front. So it really just depends on what you're able to spend, what your goals are with that property that you're purchasing. But certainly, there's other things that can be done later, like a complete outdoor kitchen in that sort of year-round livable market. That can be done at a later phase, or a renovated bathroom that could be done at a later phase. But certainly, a private pool installation is going to cost quite a bit. So we do say that that is a premium positioning move to install something like a pool. But certainly we know that you're going to get an ROI of, in that market, it's going to cost you $40,000 to $80,000, but you're going to see annually $30,000 to $50,000 ROI. So that pool is going to pay for itself in about 2 years, which, yeah, exactly, 2 years. So then as you get to year 3, year 4, and beyond, you're going to really see more cash flow from that. And you've already paid off what that initial investment was. So it does depend on the market. And we say some of that's up front, but some of that is certainly things that you can install after you've moved in, after you've got this phased approach that you're looking at, making it more reasonable to install them after you've started to see some money come in.
And kind of follow-up question to that is, are you looking at this purely through a short-term rental lens, or is this also in like a resale of a single family home, like purely real estate lens when it comes to like amenities?
No, I think that's a great question. When we look at the data, we're looking at short-term rental data. So we really are taking that lens. But of course, like you said, there's always that additional value that comes with adding a popular amenity and increasing your overall equity in the home and potential resale value as well.
Yeah, that's so smart. Okay, I have a couple more questions about market insight reports before we dive into our case study for here in Cary. When we're looking at determining which market we want to invest in, how do you navigate established markets like a Poconos or Lake Arrowhead versus like an up and coming market like perhaps a Bourbon Trail or Kansas City, like you mentioned? When there's not that much data around those growing markets, how do we supplement that to get an accurate snapshot of what we could earn in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question because you're going to see a lot of information out there for those established markets and a lot of really established regulation around it. And so I think when you're looking at a market that's up and coming, that might have that fluctuation in the regulations there, that's certainly something to consider. But when we look at the short-term rental data, we do our best to try to get a large enough data sample that you can feel reliable about the credibility of the information we're providing. And we spend time filtering and cleaning it to make sure that we're focused on only full-time hosts. So you're not going to get somebody who's a hobbyist host that's moved out for the weekend and they're sort of giving it an outlier swing in what we're looking at. So I think, we do share how many data points are involved in that. We're looking at a market that has 300 properties and this is based on those 300 properties, or we're looking at a market of 10,000 properties and it's based on this information. So we certainly do try to caveat that. But if a market really doesn't have that much information, it's certainly a conversation that's like, okay, here's what, we can find from the information that's out there. I'm just going to let you know that this is maybe less reliable because there's not as many sample size, so it might be a risk. And we did that with Bandon, Oregon, when we did a project up there. It's near a very popular Bandon Dunes golf course. There's not a lot of properties in the area, and so the investor and the interior designer we were working with, you know, they wanted to comp against a property that was on a cliffside. They were making about $1 million. And I said, I don't know if that's a great property to comp against. It's the only one. They're not available all year round. So you're going to see a high occupancy because they're only available during the summer when it's the most popular. I was like, just take it with a grain of salt. But this could be an example of what could happen in the summertime. But I wouldn't use this as your example from what can happen in a full cycle year, just because the weather in that area is really unpredictable. It's very cold, it's rainy, it's wet. People are not always traveling like they do in the summer during the other months. So we just have a conversation through that, especially when it's a custom client project, to say, here's the disclosure. Take this into consideration, but it is, something to take a look at and see if you want to consider this information to be useful for you.
And you mentioned regulations too. So is that something that you include in your report? Is any existing zoning laws? And because that's something that we've run into in the past where we thought it was a perfect spot for a perfect, business opportunity and then it wasn't. So if you do include it, where do you source that information?
Absolutely. So we try to include it as much as we can. We do encourage everyone to look at the nuances, not only because that is changing so fast from a regulatory standpoint, but also it can be so nuanced based on the township, based on the city, based on the county that you're in. And sometimes markets are large and going over multiple counties in different areas. So we try to go exactly to the source. I just did a project in Park City and Salt Lake, and their regulations are very nuanced. So we had to go to what the Salt Lake City, what Park City, Utah was actually saying in their own regulations, and just included the links for people to make it easy so that they can go back and find, from the direct source, what does the regulation look like so that they can review it themselves. And sometimes it's not always that easy to find. So we do try to reference, the official source. But again, I would say that's constantly changing. So making sure that you as a host are very much aware, even if you're in a HOA community, making sure you're aware of those regulations as well, because that can certainly impact your ability to own an STR and host as well.
Yeah, the short-term rental laws have been so quickly evolving, and where we have our short-term rental in Kentucky, there's really not a lot of laws around it. So it's like they just deal with it as it comes up, like case by case basis. So sometimes even like a quick Google search of the county zoning laws, it doesn't reflect the current laws because they haven't ever updated the online stuff. So it's even worth like a call to the actual zoning office if it's available. And my final question around the market insights reports are, have you ever had to tell a client that it's not an investable area?
So that is so funny you say that. We just worked with an interior designer who, when we gave her a report for a client who bought a boutique hotel in Siesta Key, Florida, she said, unfortunately, like the report said it was a bad purchase on their part. And either she's like, I have to deliver the news to the client where it's either, do we put lipstick on this pig, or do we, recommend that they sell it and buy a property that is in a more profitable area? And it was not beachfront, and it didn't have the opportunity to put in a pool. And those two factors are real revenue drivers in that market. So certainly we've worked with individual clients that have gotten the information and then had to navigate that conversation, which, I personally, if I'm someone that is working with an interior designer or working with a real estate agent and they give me the guidance, that I'm going to save myself a level of heartache and money from, not continuing to put money into an investment property that's not going to see a return on investment. I would appreciate that, but that can be a very personal thing for somebody, and really a tricky conversation that you would need to have.
It sounds like they needed you a little earlier on in the
Yeah,
process. They got to you too
I
late.
know.
Hey, host, you've got a lot of responsibilities on your plate: guest communication, cleaning coordination, marketing, and everything in between. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while and love all the great actionable tips, but just have zero time to execute on them, then it might be time to get some help. You're in luck. I've been a superhost for over 6 years with over 200 five-star reviews, and I'm here to help you elevate your short-term rental business. I've co-hosted properties across 3 states, managing everything remotely and ensuring my clients' guests have a seamless 5-star experience every single time. Here at Brandon Market, we focus on creating a unique guest experience through cohesive branding for your property. It gives boutique hotel rather than side hustle short-term rental. So whether you need help with guest communication, maintaining your listing, or just keeping things running smoothly day to day, my co-hosting services take the stress off your shoulders so you can focus on growing your business and portfolio, or getting that side hustle back over to the side. Let me make your listing into your legacy, one great guest experience at a time. Ready to take your short-term rental to the next level? Head to www.brandonmarket.co/co-hosting to learn more about how my co-hosting services can help you. So now let's take this like market insight report. We're going to like switch gears a little bit. And so Emily can have some talk time too. I'm so excited to hear about the market insight report that you guys generated for your hometown, Cary, North Carolina, and how that came to life in Bramble, which is the name of their short-term rental in Cary that's been knocking it out of the freaking park. And if I remember correctly, it's down to like 2 amenities that really differentiated you. Is that right, Emily?
Yes. So when I was originally looking for a short-term rental in Cary, I was actually looking for a new build that was a condo with a rooftop terrace that's being built a block away from the downtown Cary Park, which is this new park that Cary built that was $68 million. It was named the #1 best playground in America. It's this really beautiful place. And then I saw this little ranch house come up for sale and was like, oh no, this is it. This is the property that I need to buy. It had land, it had a screened in porch, it had more room so I could put more people. Also, during a time when mortgage rates were really high, it was me spending less money on interest and my mortgage and then putting more money into a renovation. And so essentially that's what we did. I bought this house. I was very prepared. And so I saw it come up and then put an offer in the same day and was able to get it the next day. So I was very lucky to have been prepared for that. And then moving forward, we renovated the entire house and we added a half bath. We put in a game room. We added a laundry. We demoed the entire patio pad, the concrete pad in the backyard, and added this massive, beautiful patio. And then the report guided us a lot on the decisions inside. So it's speaking to this aspiring wealthy traveler. What kind of materials did I need to be able to pull in? How could we use the money that's essentially a part of my renovation budget strategically? When we looked at the Cary market, Cary, like a lot of North Carolina, has a long season to be able to spend outside. And so no other person except for maybe one or two really did anything with their backyard. So it leaves a lot of this time that people want to spend outside with nothing to do at their rental. And so what I did is I put in this like 32 by 20 patio space, and we added a grill island. Not just a grill, like a very large grill situation, 6 burner rotisserie. We added a 12-person table. We added a hot tub, and the hot tub was the thing that Heather and I had the longest amount of conversations on. I think originally I wanted to add a cowboy pool. I was like, nobody has this. This is really cool. This could be different. And the thing that it came down to was it's not filterable. And so leaning into the platform itself and thinking about how are guests going to be searching, and is a guest that's looking for a pool going to be disappointed with a cowboy pool? And is a guest that's looking for a hot tub going to be disappointed with a cowboy pool? So there's disappointment either way, and there's no filter that's related for it.
Explain what a cowboy pool is for anybody that doesn't know.
A cowboy pool is essentially like a large stock trough, like a 8-foot round, 3-foot deep, circulating water. It originally was like meant for horses to have water in the fields in Texas, essentially. And so it's very family friendly because it's low for little kids, and it's more of like a soaking pool for adults. And essentially, because we were not able to validate that it's filterable or that guests would be happy with it, we shifted to the hot tub. And so I will say that my guests use the hot tub all the time and they love it. And it's one of the things that I think is driving a lot of business. That plus the EV charger. The EV charger is another amenity. It's a small amenity. It costs like $400 plus the install. But if we're thinking about targeting this aspiring luxury traveler, even if they're flying in, they're renting a Tesla or they're renting the Cadillac that's the EV version, or whatever it is. We have to think about what products do they use in their life that they're going to bring with them. And so these luxury vehicles, they're going to prefer to charge it overnight. And so I am one of only 5 rentals within Raleigh, Cary, Durham, and Chapel Hill that have an EV charger and a hot tub. And so that very much differentiates myself. It was very intentional. And I think that it makes it so my place stands out when people are looking for something really specific.
Absolutely. I remember that the EV charger was one of those huge differentiators to the point where it's now on our 2026 list for our Kentucky house. Like that conversation between me and you has changed our amenity strategy. So yeah, that's an incredible insight and kind of brings us back to overall like branding, right? Where you have to know who the guest is that's coming to visit us and how to fill their needs without them even having to ask for those needs to be filled. And I think that shows not only in your amenity strategy, which clearly the hot tub's been used and the EV charger's been used, but also in how you treat the guests when they arrive. Can you give us a little bit more insight into your guest experience and hospitality there?
Of course. I have hosted 11 people, and I will tell you that every single review that I've received, they mention me by name. And so part of that is because having been a wedding planner, I love the little details. And so when thinking about putting the house together, those little details were just as important as the big details. And it comes through to all of the guests with the words that they use to describe the house. It's cozy. Emily was so thoughtful. Before every guest, I try to learn a little bit like glean a little bit of what their purpose is here or who is coming. So then I can leave them a welcome gift. During the winter, when I had a bunch of families come over the holidays, I left this like little milk jar of hot cocoa plus marshmallows that were like covered in chocolate and sprinkles. And it just like made it feel a little extra special, plus a handwritten note, and then a little bit of stovetop potpourri to make it feel really warm and cozy. And so it's like adding these small little things. Recently, I've had more couple guests come. And so I've been adding pastries from a local bakery, La Farm Bakery, which um, number one, they're visually stunning. And then number two, they're really delicious. And so there's an element of what you give, but also how you present it. Like I put it together really beautifully. I have ribbon that's branded within my colors. I have a handwritten note. The stovetop potpourri has like I've made it so that my logo is on it and everything. And incorporating it all together, and it all matches the decor as well. So like blues and tan tones and creams are all a part of my decor. And then I'm putting that into how I'm presenting it. So it's a very cohesive and thoughtful way because a present could just be a present, but you elevate it with how you showcase it to your guests. And so I think that they appreciate it because I get messages all the time like, oh my God, this was so thoughtful and sweet. And I think that, like, I've honestly become a little bit addicted to making them the best gift for them, and I really just wanna show off Cary, so I try to use local businesses so that they can then go and try them and just see how great the area is that they've come to because they might not try the local butcher shop, but I had a dad who came in for a week to visit his daughter at NC State, and I gave him a gift card there because I knew he would wanna use the grill. And so he bought steaks. He sent me a picture of it with him and like his drink. And he's like, this is the greatest. And I'm like, I knew you would love it. And so I think that like being really targeted and personal, like makes a difference to them because clearly there's a lot of thought that goes into it and they feel it.
And when he comes back to NC State next year to visit his daughter, he's coming to you.
He will. He's already told me.
There you go.
But he'll pay more
Okay.
because I think Emily's getting these great reviews that'll help her continue to raise her ADR year over year because there's a lot of
Hmm.
social proof saying it is a fantastic stay. It's worth the money. Go ahead and book. So I think from a profitability standpoint, it's strategic as well.
It is 100%.
Absolutely. So I have a question about when you changed from going to like the new build condo to the ranch style home, was there something in the data that reflected that would still be a feasible idea in that market?
I think that when you look at the data that we have, it's about bedroom count as well. So the bedroom counts were comparable. The way that I envisioned renovating the house had a same material for material look and feel, but having the single family home, having the ability to have a yard, and then the phase 2 of my business is having a beautiful garden. So I think that the way that I've put the house together is somewhat with a mission for encouraging people to get back to nature, to relax, to experience a different level of sustainability in their everyday routine. And so for me, being able to create a garden, which we are going to be doing this year, is something that I wanted to do on the terrace upstairs for that condo, but it's going to be more significant with the house. So having been a wedding planner, and Ali, I'm sure that you feel this, there is magic that is created when you are on site and you see these beautiful flowers, you see the magic of the venue, especially one that's incredibly beautiful and you can and entertain your guests outside. And so I want to be able to bring a level of that magic that could be felt on a wedding day to everyone's every day when they spend it at my rental, because that's something that will not be able to be replicable. Like my neighbors could put in a hot tub or an EV charger, and then I'm not differentiating. But if I do something that then is irreplaceable, then it would be just another way, as well as it's Instagrammable. So a lot of millennials and a part of some of the reports that Heather and I have put together are traveling for the shot. They want to be able to share with their friends and family places that they've been that other people don't know about, that is beautiful, that gives them the experience that they're looking for and is incredibly authentic. And so I think the having the land was really a strategic vision for long term, like how can this be something very special?
So you had the report, you chose the property, you made the renovation decisions, developed amenity strategy, have hosted 11 guests over the course of, it's only been like 6 or 8 weeks, right? It's not been
And
very long.
yeah, I opened middle end of October and
Okay.
our numbers are crazy. Like
I want to hear them. I want to hear
okay,
whatever you're willing to share.
okay. So for October, which we start, I opened my calendar on the 21st. I had 4 days booked, 40% occupancy. My average daily rate was $227.
Can you
The
compare
average,
that if you
yes,
have it? Okay.
the average for the Cary market is 192. That's
So
the
out
out
the
the gate.
gate, you are $30 per night more.
Yes. In November, I have 90% occupancy and I have an average daily rate of 288. In
And what
December,
is the average occupancy of that market in November? Because November is a quiet month for that area, right?
yes. So the average occupancy for November for 2025 was 50%.
Damn.
So I was 40% higher than the market the same year. And then in December, I had 92% occupancy when the average is 41%. And then my average daily rate was 293.
And the average daily rate for everybody else was probably 170, maybe.
It was I don't have that number for that specific period, but again, the market at large is 192.
Right.
So I'm
That's
significantly higher. So
absolutely incredible.
overall, I'm 26% higher occupancy than all of the market for Cary. And then I have a 48.4% ADR higher than the rest of the market. So instantly it shows how much it matters to have an elevated design, have the amenities that differentiate yourself, as well as being an exceptional host, because it's the twofer. Like if I provided a poor experience from my end, then it would not have been as successful. So it's a two-part system, really.
Absolutely. That is so incredible. So, if you guys are looking to invest in a new market, or if you're looking to even elevate your current
Mhm.
short term rental and the market that you're already in, you need to talk to Heather and Emily because I can't, the numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. And it's not like they threw spaghetti at the wall trying to figure out whether the EV charger or the hot tub was going to work. They knew it was going to work before they even put it in. So this is absolutely incredible. I have loved speaking to you ladies today. I'm going to leave you with a final question. And then I want to make sure that everybody knows where to access you after this podcast episode. But if you were to give anyone that's listening to this podcast one piece of advice to become the best in their brand and in their market, what would that piece of advice be? And how about we do one from Heather and one from Emily?
Yeah, I think, I think do your homework. I know it takes a lot of work, and we've seen people, across many different forums say, where am I finding this information? It takes a long time to do my due diligence. Should I just, pull the trigger and just, go for it? And I just think hope's not a strategy. And sometimes this is people's life savings. So slow down, do your research. That information is out there. You can find it, or you can come to us and we can give it to you where you can understand it within an hour and set yourself up for success in the long term. But I think make sure you're making smart decisions and that, you're really being intentional in how you set up your property because there's so many subpar hosts. We really just want people to make the right decisions with confidence to really help them be the top performers within their market and the most competitive property that they can purchase.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of tag along on that. And I feel like a lot of the through lines are in the short term rental world is that it's just oversaturated now. It's oversaturated. Don't go to the short term rental world. And I wholeheartedly disagree because, like you said, there are so many ways to differentiate yourself. If that's a amenity strategy, if that's the guest experience that Emily's been providing, and like she said, bringing those two together and marrying them makes you unbeatable in pretty much any market.
I know. And you can see like a lot of comments about hosts are about communication. There's some really easy fixes to become an exceptional host, but if you don't set it up well and you're not a great host, you aren't going to be able to see your numbers, reach the top of the potential revenue for that market. But it's doable. It just takes some work up front to be able to set it up in the right way. And we want to help people achieve that.
Absolutely. Emily, what's your one piece of advice for people to be the best in their brand and their market?
I would say it's to take a calculated risk. And so having the market report was like my North Star for things that I wanted to do. But understanding that when people travel, they don't want to stay in another suburban home. And so that helped to push my design choices just a little bit farther. And so it's like choosing a tile that I would not choose for my personal home, but is a wow moment within the rental. And so it's like just going over the top in the little ways that make financial sense regarded to like what the report says we need to stay focused on, and putting your money into places where we will have that return on investment.
Absolutely. So, you guys have been a wealth of knowledge today. I really appreciate your time. And I want to make sure that if anybody wants to gather a market insight report or work with you in some other way, can you tell us a little bit more about how people can work with you and where they can find you?
Absolutely. Come visit us at dataleddesigns.com. I'm Heather at Data Led Designs. And in March, we're going to be launching a coaching course to help other people take this similar approach, understand data, really walk through that buy box strategy. How do you know what to be looking for in your market, how to understand the information, and then how to set you up for success. And so that'll be launching an 8-week course launching in March. We'd love to have people reach out to us, DM us on Instagram at dataleddesigns_STR. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. However you want to get in touch with us, we love talking to people that are interested in STR.
And Emily, I know that you have an Instagram account for the Cary property as well. So take this opportunity to shout that out.
Yes, it is bramble.cary. You can find us there and follow along with our journey and our property.
Awesome. Thank you again, ladies, for spending time and pouring knowledge into me, not only me, but also the podcast listeners as well. So thank you again. And I'll be rooting you on here in Cary and any other market you decide to go into. You just completed another episode of the Brand and Market Podcast. If you found this helpful, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find this show and so that you never miss an episode. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for all the resources mentioned today. See you next Wednesday, and as always, I'm here cheering you on as you build your dream brand and business.